Flying was once just a dream, and here we are in the 20th century, traveling through the sky, probably for a business trip, a vacation, or to spend the holidays. Meanwhile, this guy has got something else in mind. He was probably craving empanadas or longing for the heat of Mexico. Heck, he even brought these super cool men in black sunglasses. Sure, that's not where the plane is headed, but that does not matter. He's determined to get what he wants, a flight to Mexico and to touch down 200,000 richer or 1.3 million in today's money. After puffing some smoke and gulping down a soda and good old bourbon, he took matters into his own hands, called the attendant's attention, and executed the greatest, unsolved, most notorious hijacking mystery in the FBI and American history. Hey, my name is Detective Maple. If you like true crime stories and unsolved mysteries, hit that subscribe button because I'm here to bring tons your way. So drape your blanket over your head and let's get spookin'. Just before Thanksgiving of 1971, Northwest Airlines Flight 305 was bound from Portland to Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. The crew and 35 other passengers boarded the Boeing 727-100, and all was supposed to be nice and smooth. Until, of course, this man, in his mid-40s, in a 007 outfit, business suit, black overcoat, white shirt, brown shoes, carrying a dark briefcase and a paper bag, begged to differ. Witness accounts say that unlike stereotypical criminals who are hysterical and borderline disrespectful to other passengers, he was calm and collected. Around 3 p.m. after takeoff, Cooper hands a note to stewardess Florence Schaffner, who was probably used to unprofessional and honestly creepy old men. She slips it into her pocket, only to be threatened with a sentence. "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." And at the beginning of what would later be called the Norjack, short for Northwest Hijacking by Ralph Himmelschbach, Cooper shows the contents of the attaché case to Schaffner: red sticks and a mass of wires. Then, he asks her to sit next to him and take note of his demands to send to the captain. The first one is $200,000 in cash, all $10,000 in $20 bills in a knapsack by 5 p.m. Second is 2 back and 2 front parachutes, and lastly, a truck ready for refueling. If the crew was not terrified enough, he also made sure to remind them not to do any funny stuff or he will do the job. Captain William A. Scott was living the nightmare of every pilot. Yet he was able to inform the air traffic control and the rest of the passengers that the flight to Seattle would be delayed. Meanwhile, the Boeing 727 circled Puget Sound for 2 hours to give time for Northwest Airlines and the FBI to compile the hijackers' demands. Another stewardess, Tina Mucklow, would ask Cooper if he had a grudge against the airlines, to which he would respond with, "I have no grudge against your airline, miss. I just have a grudge." When Cooper was informed that his demands were ready, the aircraft landed at Tacoma International Airport on an isolated but brightly lit apron. The windows and shades were closed to hide the hijacker from snipers. Al Lee, Northwest Airlines operations manager, was a delivery man of the cash-filled knapsacks and parachutes, and this photo was taken. Cooper then released all 35 passengers, Schaffner, and a senior flight attendant. The refueling took some time and some patience off of Cooper. He could not even wait to get the show started and showed the crew in the cockpit his flight plan. At first, Cooper demanded to go straight to Mexico City, but the crew was like, no, the plane could not go that far, so they would later agree to stop and refuel at the Reno Tahoe International Airport. Tailed with 2 fighter craft, unbeknownst to Cooper, of course, the plane took off again at 7:40 p.m. with 4 other crew members. Shortly after takeoff, DB wanted some alone time to think about what he is about to do next. So he told Mucklow to join the rest of the crew in the cockpit. The last communication they had with the hijacker was when they were asking him through the intercom if he needed assistance. The crew felt a fluctuation in the plane, and that moment is speculated to be when DB lowered the aft staircase and with a parachute and his bag, jumped into the darkness of the night. News conferences welcomed the crew at the Reno International Airport approximately 2.5 hours after the Northwest Airlines jet landed. In hindsight, the name Dan Cooper is one of the very few clues linking us to the hijacker's identity. Even that was a pseudonym used to purchase this plane ticket. Because is there any more basic name than your average all-American Dan Cooper? Turns out, the FBI was already investigating someone with DB's initial, and the media miscommunicated that it was the actual identity of the hijacker, DB Cooper. Unfortunately, Cooper's identity, motives, and whereabouts would remain a mystery until now. After that, we can only speculate what happened to DB or the $200,000 ransom money. Spoiler alert, he was never found, which may lead us to believe that he is alive, but there are some details and evidence the FBI found that would boggle our minds for decades. The FBI was no noob to hijackings even in 1971. In the early 1900s, it was such a common occurrence that some airlines even had insurance if their plane got hijacked. Another airline even planned to build a fake airport in case another DB Cooper comes along. The point is, they know better than to actually give Cooper unmarked and undocumented $20 bills. They immediately got to work and nit-combed the plane for every particle of evidence. For some reason, Cooper took off this black JCPenney tie before he jumped. I know, I have so many questions too. This tie provided the FBI with a DNA sample. Probably hoping to catch Cooper using the bills to pay for a pack of cigarettes in a random convenience store, the FBI informed the public about the serial numbers. Almost a decade after the hijacking, in 1980, a boy named Brian Ingram stumbled upon a package containing $5,800 on a beach nearby Tenabar. The serial numbers of the money matched the ones that were given to DB Cooper. The condition of the bills was too good considering that they must have been washed ashore from the Washougal River. The rubber bands used were in pristine condition, indicating that it was not exposed to water or heat. So the theories are that DB, or whoever got a hold of DB's money, must have hidden the bag out of exposure until it resurfaced. The questions of who or why are left unanswered to this day. Out of the thousands of suspects and witnesses that the FBI has interviewed in hopes of putting the Norjack hijacker behind bars, these unfortunate men topped the list. Robert Rackstraw. Robert Rackstraw did not confess nor deny if he was DB Cooper, but he was suspected for a few reasons. Firstly, his military background could explain his preference to use the military chute rather than the civilian ones, and his skill to make bombs. Secondly, he has an uncle named Cooper, who he might have borrowed his pseudonym from. Contradictory to this, Rackstraw was in his late 20s, unmatching Cooper's age of 40 to 50. Kenneth Christensen. Like Rackstraw, Christensen has served the country. He had also worked for the military and Northwest Airlines as a mechanic and flight attendant before and after the hijacking, which could explain his knowledge of airplanes and supports the theory that the Norjack was an inside job. In 1994, he told his brother that, "There is something you should know about, but I cannot tell you." Spoiler alert, he died without confirming or denying if he was DB Cooper or if he wanted to confess something else. Regardless, he did not match the physical description according to the witnesses. Christensen was lighter, shorter, and had less hair. Richard McCoy. Richard McCoy hijacked and parachuted from Boeing 727 in 1972, the year after Norjack, in the same manner that Cooper did. This leads people to believe that it was committed by the same person. Although he also asked for 4 parachutes, McCoy wanted $500,000 instead of $200,000. Both of them were calm during the heist, and like Cooper, he passed this note to the flight attendant. McCoy was experienced in skydiving, and he served in the Vietnam War, which could explain his preference for using the military chute and making bombs. He did survive the fall and evaded the authorities for 2 days, but he was later caught and sentenced to 45 years. He did not deny or confirm if he was D.B. Cooper, but most people assumed that he was a copycat. Duane Weber. Here we go again with the deathbed confessions. Duane Weber, in 1995, told his wife that he was Dan Cooper. His spouse told the police that he may have owned the bank bag and that he possibly had a knee injury from jumping from the plane. In his sleep, he mentioned leaving fingerprints on the plane. He had a military background and a criminal record, and he may have visited Tana Bar. Weber was 47 years old at the time of the Norjack, but his fingerprints nor DNA did not match the evidence found. The last theory is that the real D.B. Cooper is dead and never survived the jump. FBI agent Carr saw holes in Cooper's plan and that he was not an experienced paratrooper or jumper. Therefore, he could not have survived jumping into the dark, zero visibility night, carrying one soon-shut training chute and an unsteerable military chute. It was also raining, and if he had known better, he would have asked for other protective gear. This canvas bag contained one of the parachutes given to D.B. Cooper in 1971. Cooper asked for 2 front and 2 back parachutes, but he only jumped with 2. He used the cord from the one of the remaining parachutes to tie the stolen money bag shut. This was one of the chutes that Cooper did not use for himself, nor the ransom money bag. Yet, the greatest hole in Carr's theory was that his body, or a body that matches Cooper's physical description, was never found. In this undated photo, a helicopter takes off from search headquarters to scour the area where hijacker Dan Cooper might have parachuted into Woodland Wash. At this point, almost 5 decades have passed. With countless failed leads, a lack of evidence, and more questions than answers about who D.B. Cooper was, his motives, and whereabouts. Can you really blame the FBI for setting aside this case in 2016 and redirecting their efforts and funds to other more urgent investigations? Although this crime cost the taxpayers thousands of dollars and brought trauma to the victims and fear of flights to the public, it also paved the way for airline companies to enhance flight security. Was D.B. Cooper a bold, calculated criminal? Or maybe he was average thinking and broke Dan who had the ransom money for a few hours but got the shorter end of the stick in his attempts of evading the consequences of his crime. Let us know what you think in the comments down below. In the next story, Brianna Maitland was talking about her plans on going to college when she suddenly gazed through the window and her once happy mood turned into grim and discomfort. Little did her mother know that fearful face would forever be ingrained in her mind, as that was the last time she would ever see Brianna. Until then, Puppet out!